Welcome to INS, the International News Service, your source for the most important weird news from across the globe. With news analyst Kevin Harrison, actor, comedian, and musician Mike Wiebe, and professional commentator Brian Camp. INS, the news you need.
Is a Prince Adam haircut the same as a Prince Valiant haircut?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think so.
Prince Adam is blonde. It's totally different.
Prince Valiant kind of has the page boy thing where I don't know how to describe it. The long part where there's like a sharp kind of very sharp corner to it. Did He-Man have? I thought He-Man's hair was feathered.
I thought He-Man had like where it kind of curled under at the bottom to where his head looked like a bell a little
Prince
bit.
Valiant probably does that a little bit too, huh?
But he did have like the bangs.
Bangs,
right?
yeah.
Well, short bangs, and then, well, because when you're fighting, you don't want the hair in your eyes.
It's like the same hair.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a little scruffier in the bangs, but that's about the only difference. Here, let me show you.
I'm glad we're starting with
So
this.
it's a little. So
what,
you can see here, like Prince Adam's hair is a little bit less ruffled, where He-Man's is a little bit more out of control. But they're almost identical.
Well, then we got a picture over there of Taylor Swift. I watched that movie Amsterdam, the David O. Russell movie Amsterdam.
Yeah, what do you think?
It wasn't a great movie, but like everybody was really great in it. Like, and I guess I'm kind of spoiling it, but I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't bringing it up. Taylor Swift is briefly in the film, and she is brutally murdered and run over by a car, and it is extremely satisfying. And I don't even know that I don't know that I even hate her that much. I don't really even know that much about her. She's one of those people who is ridiculously famous and one of the biggest artists. And now, like, she's not even like a new artist. She's been like one of the biggest artists, musical artists of the last, I don't know, what do you say, like 20 years probably?
Yeah, at least
15, at least 15. And I only know one song by her. There's only one song.
Which one?
And if you wanna shake, 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 shake. I think I did a pretty good job of it. You're laughing, but I think actually, Brian's got his face covered. But I actually kind of fucking nailed it.
Okay.
Well, you sing it. You sing it then.
I don't know that song.
I don't have the pipes. I'm a little sick. I'm a little under the weather, Mike.
Well,
I can't.
warm them up.
I can't. I don't feel good enough. I just don't feel up to it.
Listen, there's a little saying we have called "the show must go on," and by we I mean the Carney folk that I grew up with.
Didn't she sing the Romeo and Juliet song? Is another song she got famous for? The country song? Like, she was a country artist at first, right?
Yeah, right.
When she decided that was the best way to turn her already millions of dollars into more millions of dollars because she's just another dumb rich kid.
Romeo and Juliet, that's Blue Oyster Cult.
Wait, what?
Romeo and Juliet.
That's like one line from Fear the Reaper.
That is Blue Oyster Cult, Brian.
Well,
the sun or the wind or the rain.
I can't believe you would confuse them, Brian.
I already can't sing.
Somebody asked me once. I'm at a bar. They have karaoke. This guy with a live band, and this guy wanders over and goes, "Hey, can you sing 'Don't Fear the Reaper'? I need somebody for the 6th song tonight." I was just like, "No, I am not humiliating myself in public like that." But thank you.
Don't Fear the Reaper wouldn't be too hard. It's kind of, you just got to find that there's not any like high notes. It's not like hitting the high notes in Rocket Man by Elton John.
I can hit the high notes. I can't hit the low notes.
A rocket man. A rocket man.
That's pretty good.
Now do Tiny Dancer for us.
I'm going to try to get Rocket Man better.
Okay.
Rocket Man. I can't do it.
Hard, yeah.
I can't do falsettos. I'm trying to learn them. I can't.
You should sing Tiny Dancer.
That was the best.
Like Private Dancer.
Private Dancer, Dancer for Money.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a great song. And I like Tina Turner.
That was pretty close.
Me to do. Yep.
Tina Turner can do no wrong. Thunderdome, Private Dancer.
Man, she's got great legs.
I could gnaw on them.
Like in Thunderdome.
Yeah,
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I like them. I like those crazy earrings she had too.
the Thunderdome. What can we do without love?
This episode is off the rails.
Oh, we are recording, huh?
Yeah.
I'm having some tea. You guys drink tea?
No, I'm a man, so I drink coffee.
I got
Well-
a kettle.
I'm American. I'm an American man, so I drink coffee.
You need to get Bigelow's Constant Comment. That's the only tea you need.
Bam Bam Bigelow's.
Bam Bam Bigelow's.
Famous wrestler Bam Bam Bigelow.
Did he eat turnbuckles? Or is that just George the Animal
No, that's
Steel?
George the Animal Steel, who I met and had a nice little connection with, and then he died like a year later.
Oh, really?
Like sexual?
Did you murder him?
No, just
You said
you know.
when you said it, it sounded like it was more of a lover's rendezvous.
It was
Yeah.
no, it was more
Yeah,
like
it sounded like you were in Cabo
okay.
Mm,
by yourself over like trying to recover from a particularly prickly breakup
Yeah.
that you were supposed to go on. You're supposed to go there with your wife or a husband. I don't know. Your lover. And then it was like a divorce type situation.
I've never been married.
And then you went to recover from it. You were about to. It was actually, it got called off.
Uh-huh.
Like at the altar, the marriage got called off. And somebody was standing there and they're like, "Do you, Kevin, take whoever?" And somebody just, shot up and was like,
Uh-huh.
"I have reason to believe that Kevin's lover is a murderer and is a cheater and a liar." And then they pulled out a PowerPoint graph that was weirdly
Uh-huh.
there was
So
a.
this is Fred Schneider from the B-52.
about to say the B-52 singer showed up again.
It was well, that's who Kevin got to perform. Kevin was supposed to perform. They were going to perform at the wedding. They were
Right,
going to do the
I get-
reception.
I
They're
get
like,
good talent for
Rock
my wedding.
Lobster, it's Kevin's wedding, and we're all having a really good time. Wedding, Kevin's wedding. Anyway, yeah, Fred Schneider pulls out because Fred Schneider also private detective in his part time when he's
It's
not
true. This is
entertaining
accurate.
the fans. He's running around going like,
Text for money.
"I found some information that you've cheating on your wife. I'm solving a murder. A bartender got murdered and I'm solving the crime. He owns some land on a big piece of place that has some oil coming off of it, and it was going to be."
Does
What?
Fred Schneider only talk
Why?
in rhyme?
Why do I
wait.
stop?
Mike's getting in trouble, just so the listener could.
They love it. They're asking me to do more. Yes, they are.
Let's take a poll. Who would like him to continue with that?
I think it's pretty good. So
Brian
I'm enjoying it.
likes it. Kevin says he likes it too.
You're all demented, weird creatures.
Mm. Hurtful, I guess.
Hurtful. That was rude.
We have one star review.
And she doesn't know that I'm gonna keep singing.
Man, you could probably do that on a road trip
Yeah.
for hours at a time.
I know, that's the thing. It's just the insanity of her just coming in here and going like, "Hey, this is my Achilles heel. This is it right here.
Mhm.
Don't touch this heel right here.
This is the thing. Yep.
This is the thing that's going to work every single time."
Right.
All you have to do is something that you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
I know you'll stop.
What was that? Yeah. Anyway, so Kevin's wedding.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They go and he reveals all the indiscretions, and Kevin, heartbroken, has to go down to Cabo San Lucas.
Okay.
And he's drinking all by himself at a bar
Is
called
Sammy Hagar there?
at a bar called Senor Pete's Frog, and he's drinking just tequila, and then all of a sudden, he looks over there, and there's a Bam Bam Bigelow, and is just wearing the little tidy whitey wrestler underwear and
A
boots.
singlet? Or is he wearing just the hot pants?
It's just the hot pants, but
Okay.
it goes up and covers. It's the singlet, but it only covers one shoulder. So there's one.
Oh.
So one nip is hanging out.
Oh yeah.
And then you look over with tears in your eyes, and Bam Bam Bigelow comes, picks you up, throws you over his shoulder,
Okay.
a la a caveman, and he takes you out to a cove where it just so happens that George the Animal Steel is out there grabbing, and it's like that movie, The Cove, where they're killing dolphins, but George the Animal Steel is just grabbing dolphins by the tail and beating them, just using his rough, raw strength and beating them by the head until
he was a good wrestler. I don't think he would do that.
Is he screaming while he's doing it, just at the top of his lungs?
Yeah. Yeah. And he's beating these poor dolphins to death. And then I don't know, the three of y'all have a big three-way in the bloody Dolphin Cove water. While dolphin body corpses float around you.
I want to point out for the listener that none of that happened.
But you do find that pretty erotic.
Yeah, but it is hot.
Right. That is. We have identified your.
You know, people do write a lot of sexy fan fiction about our show.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its own subreddit. Our show doesn't have a subreddit, but sexy INS fan fiction does. You guys ready to get started?
Yar!
Welcome to the International News Service. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin Harrison, along with...
I'm Brian Camp.
I'm George the Animal Mike Wiebe Steele.
So this week we've got two news stories, a bonus story, and then the Donald P Bellisariosance continues and get to know your podcast.
Yes, it does. And this is going to be a controversial episode of the Donald P Bellisariosance. We may have to cut some stuff out. I don't know. I'm going to try and handle it as tactfully as possible. I really will.
If we gotta cut some stuff out, we should dump it on the Patreon.
I don't think that's why we're cutting it out.
Yeah, it's content related. It's content related. So, little teaser. Nothing that I said. It's nothing that I'm. It's not.
I'm just reporting it. I'm just reporting it.
I am just reporting it. It is not a commentary. I'm going to try and be as well. We'll get to it. You'll hear.
Okay. So our first story comes to us from the Huffington Post.
Ariana Huffington.
She sold it a long time ago.
She's fine as hell.
She's
got rock hard nips and she votes Democrat. Be careful, conservatives.
In 1997, boxers Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield made headlines after Tyson bit off part of Holyfield's ear in the middle of a championship boxing match. Now they're making headlines again by teaming up to sell marijuana. Mike Tyson's company, Tyson 2.0, has introduced Mike Bites, a line of pot gummies that are shaped like ears with a bite taken out of them. And on Black Friday, he expanded this line with Holy Ears, a line of THC and Delta-8 infused edibles. Holyfield plans to release his own cannabis line in 2023 and said he was initially leery. Quote, "I didn't think it was funny at first, but then I realized Mike hadn't been in more trouble in a while." He said he'd never tried marijuana in any form until Tyson sent him a sample of Holy Ears, and then, quote, "I ate it and laid down. I woke up the next morning and was like, whoa." Mike Tyson, who has become a champion of cannabis and psychedelics in recent years, told reporters, quote, "If I was on cannabis, I wouldn't have bit Holyfield's ear."
I think the real quote would be Evander Holyfield didn't think it was funny at first and then remembered money.
Yeah.
How bad was the ear bite? I don't really. I mean,
he bit a piece of it off. Like he removed part of his ear.
Is it like crazy looking now, or did they like reconstructed it?
I think they reconstructed it, but I looked into it. So apparently he bit both ears during the match. They were fighting, and I think they were against the ropes, and Tyson bit his left ear and bit like a 1-inch piece off and spit it on the mat, and then claimed he didn't know it was an accident. This is in the middle of the third round. So they separate them. They send them to their separate corners. A couple of minutes go by, and Holyfield's like, "I'm ready to. I can still do this." They're like, "Okay." So the third round continues. It's got like 40 seconds left, and then Tyson bites his other ear. The referee's like, "Fuck this." It's kind of like a long pause, And then Holyfield's people leave, and he told him to leave because he's like, he disqualified Mike Tyson, and then Mike Tyson lost his boxing license. Like, he couldn't box at all after that for a while. I think he was fined like $3 million.
He got it back, though.
Hey, Mike, is there some similarity, do you think, between Mike Tyson and Armie Hammer?
Wow.
Oh.
Sounds like they're both 100% credible.
well, Mike Tyson never swallowed any human.
That we know
as far
of.
as we know.
That we know of. There's an Armie Hammer documentary that I actually overheard someone talking about today that I'm planning on watching, maybe tonight even.
Oh.
Apparently, it's going to make me stop making these jokes because apparently he is a horrible, horrible, fucked up person. But until then, 100% credible.
He's super rich, right? Isn't he just another rich guy?
Yeah,
but apparently he had to get a job in the fucking like Caymans.
Selling real estate.
Yeah, like,
and then I think he got embarrassed and quit after 2 weeks. But yeah, his parents cut him off because he's an asshole.
But apparently he comes from a family of like assholes.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Apparently it's like there's a long history of assholism.
It is really sad when you come from a family of assholes and they're like, "No, you're too much of an asshole for us."
Yeah,
That's what my family did to me.
Well, okay, Mike Tyson. So
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly wrestling with the difference between like nostalgia and like, you know, only knowing about so many things and only having so much mental history. But I don't feel like there's ever been a boxer since Mike Tyson that held that place in boxing. When he was at his prime,
Yeah.
in my mind, he was the scariest human being on the planet. And I don't, you know, maybe there's somebody that has a better boxing history than him, but I just remember thinking it was so insane that just like, you know, round after like match after match, he would beat these guys in fucking 3 seconds.
Yeah.
In like 1 minute, these heavyweight match after match. And I don't know that it feels like even when you like hear about like Muhammad Ali and guys like that, when they won a whole bunch, it feels like they had like lots of like that. None of the matches were just these like fucking 1/2 a round minute lasting. Cause I don't follow a lot of sports stuff, but in my head, like he's one of like the all time, I don't know, like looming larger sports figures in my entire lifetime.
Yeah, definitely in our lifetime. Like I would, maybe somebody like Jack Johnson or something might be a comparable. But yeah, for the most, like in our lifetime, I don't know any other boxer on that level. Like I know other boxers like, George Foreman or Joe Frazier or something. But prior to that, it would be Ali for sure.
Yeah.
But by the time, we knew who that was, he was an old man who had, was kind of past his prime.
I think the prevailing thought on Tyson is that he never was actively boxing at a time where he had a very high-skilled, high-level boxer. I mean, they're certainly great. They're professional boxers, and they're good enough to even get in the ring with him. But I don't think he had a nemesis-type character because when he went to prison, that his peak never lined up with
anybody else's
peak. And so he was dominant, but he was dominant against maybe what is viewed as lesser competition. Whereas other great boxers typically had a foil or someone you could point to that was the person that measured their greatness against, right?
Yeah.
Joe Frazier and Ali.
Balboa had like 4 foils.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Tommy Gunn.
He had Tommy Gunn.
The greatest nemesis.
You know who finally beat Tommy Gunn? I'm not going to say it because it was too cruel. But yeah, Tommy Gunn, he had Carl Weathers, he had Mr. T, he had Ivan Drago, and he had Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
Who body slammed him, which technically is not in the rule book.
Thunder Kiss, was that his name? Or Thunder Lips?
Thunder Lips. Yeah. That video game, man, I sure played the hell out of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
He was so hard to beat, though.
I never beat him.
Yeah, neither did I. But I like read a thing about like what you had to do to beat Tyson, and they basically made it so Tyson was unbeatable.
I remember. Well, I don't know. I never saw anybody beat him either, but I think you could beat him. I know.
Yeah, you could. It was just really hard to do.
And some, like all of them, I think there were a couple of exploits for Tyson.
Wait, are you saying you cheat at video games, Brian?
No, you learned to play it the right way.
You seem to know a lot about cheating for somebody who doesn't cheat.
Not cheating. It's not just because you know how to do something. It's not cheating.
I'm Team Wiebe when it comes to video game cheating, and that I don't cheat. I'm not Team Billy Mitchell. I'm Team Steve Wiebe. Donkey Kong.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Championship master. Even though when I grow a beard out, I look like a guy that would be willing to cheat to win competitive Donkey Kong.
You're talking about the King of Kong.
I forgot about that.
Like the Donkey Kong champion. Did
Donkey Kong just get faster?
You definitely get more flaming barrels coming at you.
And this is a crazy thing, but Donkey Kong was the first gorilla to actually take the alpha brain monkey mindset pills. Kind of got the best of both worlds.
So
the strength of a Donkey Kong and the mind of a man. Never before and never since. But Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson was such like it's weird, like, because there's some like gnarly allegations against him.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of that sits. I don't know. I just don't know. I like literally don't know about. I'm not questioning the convictions per se.
It sounds like you are.
I don't know. I don't know much, but he definitely, I mean, he's got this second like life afterwards where he's got like a Broadway show about his life, and he had like a Adult Swim cartoon.
That cartoon was pretty funny.
Yeah. There was a biopic TV show about him on Hulu, and my wife, when she was taking breaks from yelling at me, was watching it. And I watched some of it. It was like pretty good, and it really made you definitely, and everything I've heard about him, like he had a pretty awful, tragic life leading up to his insane career success. And
well, it's cool that Don King stepped in and really was a positive father.
Yeah. I think they cover that in the film, in the telefilm.
But I think that is the other thing about Tyson too, is that, with Don King and Tyson, it kind of like coalesced into pay-per-view becoming something that could be in every home. And like, he was the one boxer where you didn't have to go to like a bar that had a special connection that, they were paying extra money just to show this match.
Like Cheers, like the bar Cheers.
Yeah, you don't have to hang out with Sam Malone and Woody.
Yeah.
What about Coach?
If Woody's there, Coach is dead.
No, they work together.
Coach is dead because Mike Tyson punched him in a waste.
That's right. He wasn't ready for it. Coach famously would let anybody punch him as hard as they could in the abdomen.
Yeah.
That was his whole bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson snuck up on him.
Well, no, I remember
Coach
that was a
Appleton.
crazy thing too, of like people doing the pay-per-view thing back when it first started. And I feel like, I might be wrong, but I feel like it was really expensive to watch some of those Mike Tyson fights in the early days.
I feel like in the 80s, it was like $30-$40, which was a lot.
Yeah. I thought it was like 90 or something like
Maybe
that.
it was. I don't know.
People would throw in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people would have to throw in, like it was a big deal. And then that would be like, man, and you find out later, like the fight was over in, under 1 minute, and thinking like, that's not good. For that price, you could have rented every single Porky's movie and a VCR.
True.
I think Johnny Carson, it was so bad that he was making jokes regularly about wasting money on Tyson pay-per-view in his monologue.
More expensive and quicker than a Mike Tyson fight. Rips open the envelope, pulls it out. Last night with a prostitute.
So our next story comes to us from Vice.
Which one?
Huffing gasoline.
Oh, the Huffington Gasoline Post.
That's right.
Yes.
It'll make your brain smooth.
Ow, wow, 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 wow,
Hey,
wow, wow.
Isn't that a song you have?
Hey.
Dracula's. You can buy their merch
Worlds
online.
collide. Yeah. You had a show recently.
I did have a show recently. Yes, at the Chess Club in Austin, Texas. And
I think it's pronounced Shea Club.
Dracula's have a new single out, as do the Riverboat Gamblers, who have a show coming up December 17th, Reggie's in Chicago, Illinois. Riverboat Gamblers will be playing songs not only from our new single entitled Denton, but also our cover of The Kinks, Father Christmas, our very own Christmas song.
My favorite. Well, it's the Kinks' Christmas song.
The
Well,
first,
we made it good.
first 100 paid entrants get a free hot dog.
The first 100 people into the show get a free Hot dog.
Wow.
We want our crowd to have the proper nitrate levels while we sing and dance.
You're a high nitrate band for sure.
Wow.
And I'll say this too. I'm planning on losing 72 pounds by that show.
It's a breatharian lifestyle for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mexican cities of Madero and Tampico sit just about in the center of Mexico's Gulf Coast. The area is well known.
Well, in the center of the Gulf Coast, what are they, fucking Atlantis?
No, the center of Mexico's Gulf. So Mexico.
Oh, so they're in the middle of the water. Okay, fucking Wakanda forever.
The area is well known for the destruction caused by hurricanes and tropical storms, but for over 50 years, both cities have avoided any catastrophe, and locals say they know why.
By being underwater.
Well,
so the weather storm goes right on top of them.
Well, just hold on
and they
here.
just float around there. Nude.
Just hold on here. You may be onto something. What the locals say is there is a nearby secret underwater base populated by extraterrestrials. The base?
Sea hag.
No, she's a sea hag. She's not an alien.
It's where the
It's the
witches
goons.
from
They
the
think the
sea.
goons are aliens, but it's her army of goons.
Witches
So-
that came into the sea.
Kevin's favorite movie.
So that's not my favorite movie.
It's not-
The base is called Amupac, and it is protecting the area from severe weather. That's what they say. So the legend of Amupac has made the area popular with tourists, and it now
This
has.
is Wakanda forever. This is 100% Wakanda forever.
I haven't seen that. Maybe you're.
Well,
spoiling.
it's so they changed Namor. They changed Namor's name to Namor, and
That's a
they
little weird.
made all the Atlanteans or whatever they were in Marvel. They made them all like Aztecs, and they're all like kind of Aztecian. And for realsies, that's what's happening in there. I haven't seen it either, but I know all about it because I get the Marvel newsletter signed by Stan Lee himself. Excelsior, true believer. Namor's back in the first movie. And guess what? Kevin's wife has been cheating on him.
I don't have a wife, but also Stanley is dead, and that was Fred Schneider from the B-52s.
This is a solid episode, guys.
So
There's a lot to be proud of tonight.
The legend of Amupac has made the area popular with tourists, and it now has lots of alien-themed tourism, including restaurants named for Martians, souvenir stands selling alien toys, and T-shirts declaring the area is Playa Protegida, or a protected beach. Devastating hurricanes ravaged the area in 1955, in 1960, and in 1966. But then something changed. In 1967, well before Wakanda Forever came out, thousands of locals.
And the movie Wakanda Forever, but the comic book was out back then.
No, I don't think Black Panther existed yet.
Oh, he existed. People hadn't seen him because he was hidden in the holographic force shields.
It's powered by vibranium, right?
But yeah, vibranium powered
Right.
hollow shield that people couldn't see, so people didn't really know they existed.
Get it together, Kevin.
So
Yeah.
in 1967, thousands of locals saw several flying objects in a formation in the sky, and those objects were heading to the sea. Since that time, harsh weather has missed the area entirely. Now, every October, a local UFO group holds lectures on recent sightings, the allegation that ancient civilizations had contact with aliens, and the legend of the secret underwater alien base. One researcher said he's even visited Amupac using astral projection, and that Amupac is intraterrestrial, multidimensional, and constructed of crystal and metals. It is inhabited by 10-foot or 3-meter tall, thin, light-skinned beings with a more evolved consciousness than humans.
So Canadians. SCTV.
Oh, well, case closed.
Well, yeah, you can't argue with that.
I have a question. How can you use astral projection to know that somebody has a higher level of conscience or consciousness than a person?
Well, I think you would project down there and just kind of see what kind of TV shows they're watching.
Yeah,
Okay, it's like they're watching PBS.
They're not watching any reality TV.
Right.
They're not watching Geraldo.
Oh,
Callback.
with dressing down Stringfellow Hawk.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they watching Airwolf?
They might be. They might be.
So you're saying Airwolf is a higher consciousness show?
Abso-fucking-lutely. I don't think no one's going to argue that.
Okay.
And if they do, I'll fucking figure 4 leg lock them. You remember that move, Kevin?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
I think you are.
So he said, quote, this is the astral traveler. He said, quote, I can deduce that they are psychologists, scientists who are connected in this reality, but they live in a space of no time.
Oh, they're big feet.
Why does that make them big feet?
Well, because they're multidimensional. That's
okay.
And they're psychologists, which a lot
and they're 3 meters tall. They're highly intelligent. They have a higher
They are
level
like big
of
feet if they're psychologists, because big feet know how to get in your head. They know how to get into your psyche and figure out what is the most embarrassing thing, the thing that can hurt you the most.
Yeah.
And they will exploit it.
What do you
mean?
What is
well,
the thing that can hurt you the most, Mike?
one example I can think of is the big feet ripping the trousers off someone.
The pantalones.
And holding them by both wrists, one hand holding both wrists, holding the person's naked bare bottoms up. And naked fronts, naked genitals,
right,
and pointing at their genitals and laughing.
Why are they laughing?
Well, because to them, because they're giant, fucking fearsome creatures,
3 meters.
Yeah,
right.
And to them, genitals are these, massive, grotesque, throbbing organs on the males. So when those female Bigfoots see one that's an appropriate size for a man of, 6'2 3/4.
It seems this is really a specific...
They sit there and they think it's real funny. And they get all these other animals to laugh in, because basically most animals are bullies when you get down to it.
Oh, but those dolphins, imagine the dolphins just staring and laughing.
It's enough to make you want to smash their heads over rocks.
Right. Ooh, that'd be. What do you think of that, Kevin? Does that do something for you?
I just don't think it's appropriate to treat dolphins that way. But yeah, to get back to the story,
is
it so inappropriate that it's like kind of like, hey,
naughty,
hey, naughty. Yeah, this is inappropriate. Stop.
It just sounds like this fear is so specific. You're talking about your own fear.
I think it's a universal fear.
Well, you're the one who's got a thing for mutilated dolphins.
I've never had that fear before, so I wouldn't know. But...
It's like fear of being trapped in a cave. I mean, everybody has that fear. Like whenever you see like a video of like
that's just a return to the womb kind of thing.
Russians like running on the edge of a building and stuff like that. I think most people get like, oh, it's fucking scary.
Russians?
It's a primal lizard brain kind of fear.
Yeah, exactly. Like fear, like claustrophobia. Well, I mean, I think other people run on the edges of buildings, but primarily when you go on YouTube and you see videos, have you never seen those? Like,
no.
They tend to be Russians. Oh, it's fucking crazy. They seriously.
Are you talking about parkour?
It's like that, but they do it on the top of like giant like construction towers or
I guess I've seen that.
Like unfinished buildings and stuff like that, and they'll like hang off the side.
I mean, I don't fear it.
Watch it and tell me it doesn't like produce some sort of lizard brain like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. It's too high.
Uneasiness, a certain
uneasiness. Uneasiness. Yeah, it's the same thing.
What did Mark call that? Imp of the perverse.
Enter the impiverse?
No, it was I think that's what he called it. Like just the thinking about doing something that is obviously a bad idea, and then like just kind of doing it, but just that feeling you get of
driving and thinking I could just turn my car into traffic right now,
or I could just climb out on this on this ledge and lean over as far as possible, like the kid in Superman 2 who's trying to get his mom's attention at Niagara Falls.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to the story. So we talked about the astral traveler, and he had all this spacey stuff to say. So
let me ask you this: have they put any sound bathers on this at all?
Not yet.
That's a good question.
Since it is an underwater thing, I think that there's a lot of bathing involved. So
I think if we got enough people on the Patreon, we could send you out in a rowboat with a sound bowl to gong it a few times and see what happens.
I would want to check my ley line map first before we risk something like that.
Yes.
But surely this is a confluence. I would think the Nazca lines probably, and then some other ancient sites, Giza.
Yeah, there's probably also some different, sonic conjectures within the
Right.
parameters.
I've got 3 sentences here. Let me finish this
Oh,
up.
okay.
So we talked about the astral traveler and what he said, all his stuff. So contrary to that, a local meteorologist denounced the idea, saying that the ocean water in the area is cooler than most of the Gulf Coast and, quote, manages to pull the mass of air and consequently causes the rejection of hurricanes. The air mass that enters through the Gulf is diverted towards the coasts of the United States and southern Mexico.
That's typical of a weatherman. I mean, they're deniers of everything. They want to live in their silly little bubble where true science doesn't exist, and they can hold on to their just ridiculous heretical ideas about where weather comes from, and it's
Well, Mike,
God's smiling is why it's sunny, or whatever they believe in.
They don't believe that.
You would agree with me, Mike, that there's also, there's no research grant if they solve the problem. Like they don't want
exactly.
They don't want the truth to come out, because then they can't.
What is?
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah. Then
the taxpayer out
then
of
they don't get to
millions of
dress
dollars.
up in their cute outfits and stand in front of a green screen and point at boards and make stupid little jokes with, they don't get to wear a bow tie and bring levity to it's all just network TV news needing to make a quick buck is what it is. And that's exactly
network
why
TV news in Mexico is
Univision. It's big. It's Univision.
No, that's in the United States.
Univision. They have a network there too.
No,
Is
it's
it? I don't
Una.
think
It means
they do.
one, so they just have the one.
Yeah, it's just one.
So, regardless, the area is now an important reference point for alien enthusiasts in Mexico and has attracted alien-themed tourism from around the globe.
Is there any video or anything of these ships that come in and out of the water?
From 1967? No. There's just eyewitness accounts.
Okay.
Well,
Eyewitness.
there could be film. Okay, film from 1960. When Kennedy got assassinated, there's film of that. It's called the MacGruber film, and
It's called the Zapruder film.
yeah, that's what I said. And it is.
MacGruber was a character on Saturday Night
Yeah,
Live.
but it was based on the guy who shot the film of Kennedy getting
They
killed.
got the idea
that's not
somewhere.
true at all.
It's like it's intrigue. It's all that shows all political intrigue, and so is what happened with Kennedy.
Somebody shot him. They say.
They say.
Is that what they say?
Yeah.
So has there been more sightings of the aliens around that? Because there's a lot of UFO sightings there's a chunk in Mexico, and I feel like there's a lot in South America. But
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
got a
they
base
do
in the
have-
Gulf, so
They do have a lot of UFO sightings in that area, but yeah, especially with the Gulf, I think you'd see a lot because you have nothing out there, so you'd see every little light.
it's just swamp gas.
that's what you get when you go eat at Captain D's.
Is there a single Captain D's that's still in business?
Yeah, and you know what I call it? Captain Disease.
Oh,
That'll show him.
It's a double-edged sword. If you have a lot of UFO sightings or a UFO incident in an area or whatever kind of crypto thing, do you take it real seriously and try and get the word out about it and have like a museum, or do you embrace it and have a lot of fun cocktails and themed bars and stuff like that?
they seem to have done both.
I think you do both.
Yeah,
I don't see anything wrong with that.
this is true. Like, I would love to go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and apparently there is they have the Mothman Festival, and you can buy lots of cool Mothman themed stuff. But I guess there aren't very many good Mothman tours, is what somebody told me.
Really?
You can't you can't get a good Mothman tour. You gotta sort of take your own.
I think a lot of them are kind of like a lot of the shit that happened is way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, Point
Like
Pleasant
a lot of well, I mean even the Mothman sightings were all in these old military, I don't know, not bases, but military
installations.
installations. And I think people were just going out there to hump or get high or something like that. There wasn't
Both, if
a
you're lucky.
Hump?
hump. Yeah. To make love.
Oh,
You know, you take your lady, you take some holy ears,
you guys talking about
you're ready to go. It's a night.
whoopee?
Yeah, make whoopee.
Pump's a little crass for me.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
a little
sorry.
uncomfortable with language like that.
To go necking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, necking.
Yeah, necking, canoodling.
Yeah. You know, the other thing I was going to say just is that there are a lot, and I never heard about these so much when I was a kid, but there's so many water-based UFO sightings.
The Abyss.
Well, I don't know if it's because of the Abyss and the shenanigans of Michael Beheen, but it does seem like when you hear a lot of stories about UFOs going in and out of the ocean,
Right.
and I don't know, I never heard about them before the Abyss for sure.
Well, if you wanted to avoid detection as an alien species, and you were worried about being detected by a terrestrial species, wouldn't you hide in the water?
Yeah, it's true. Good
I
hiding
guess
place.
so.
Mhm.
All I know is that when Chris Elliott was in the Abyss,
Yes.
he looks in a computer and says, "It's big."
So our next story is a bonus story. If you want to listen to this, go to our Patreon and subscribe at least the $3 level. That's the Knights of Kevin level. And you get access to this and all of our other bonus stories. We've got a bunch in there now. I'm afraid to even count them up. That's how many
I'm
I'll lose
afraid
count.
too.
But I'll give you a little taste. This next story is about 20-sided dice. It's the nerdiest story we have ever covered.
Oh shit!
Oh.
And there just might be a mention of a catoblepus.
Catoblepas.
You know, I don't even have context for what you guys are talking about, right?
Catoblepas.
This is a joke for 5 people, and I'm not one of them.
Catoblepas.
It's 7-Eleven based.
Mm-hmm.
I hear we have a new Get to Know Your podcast.
Oh, are we back?
Who told you that?
Donald P Bellisario.
We are in the Donald P Bellisariosance, the Donald Penis Bellisariosance.
Didn't know
which
that
is-
was his middle name.
Well, no, I mean his middle name is Persimmons, but he was known to have a giant cock.
Mm.
Donald P Bellisario is the producer writer schooled under the Glenn A. Larson, if you remember the Glenn A. Larson-assance.
Okay.
Originally started as a writer on Battlestar Galactica, and then he went on to create Airwolf, and then a few years later, in the year of 1989, he created a show called Quantum Leap,
Oh,
starring the
yeah.
great Scott Bakula.
Denton's own Scott Bakula.
I am getting concerned about some language right now.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
telling a story.
I don't know where Scott Bakula came from, but what Quantum Leap was about, dear listeners, was there was a scientist fella by the name of Sam Beckett, played by Scott Bakula, who was doing some time travel experiments when he got stuck in a time travel sort of loop, unable to get back home, where he was quantum leaping even, into other people's bodies. And so he'd leap into these people's bodies from the past, and there would be some sort of a problem, some sort of a history problem that he would have to help their lives.
Like a math problem?
No, it would
Could be.
kind of like, this guy, alcoholism messed up, and he got in a car wreck, and he never got to go see his kid graduate, and his kid needed his dad to be there or whatever. So,
Oh boy.
yeah. So the beginning of each episode, essentially, Bellisario, he wanted to do a anthology show, not unlike, but the problem is anthology shows are not very successful in history. You got the Twilight Zone, which did pretty well.
That was successful.
Outer Limits.
Outer Limits did okay. It was only, but not even that many seasons, I don't think.
Night Gallery.
3 successful seasons.
Alfred Hitchcock, but the television landscape is littered with anthology TV shows that only made it one season.
Right.
Can I ask a question about anthologies? I'm sorry.
Yes,
But this is now something I'm
Police
wondering.
Story was a very popular one.
Did they keep trying to do that because the anthology story was so successful on radio?
Oh.
Is that why they kept trying to go back to that? Because it seems like 50% of old radio is anthology stories, like suspense and Escape and all the. I mean, those were on for decades. It seems like.
I think that might have been a part of it, but I also think that if you have an anthology series, then you don't have any lead actors that you have to pay more every single season, and you can get away with. I think you can ultimately. They probably can end up being a little bit cheaper, depending on, how science fiction-y they are.
Do you guys? And the last thing I'll ask, because this is now I'm thinking of amazing stories. It seems like everyone, if you ask them, like, I love the idea of a series like that, and I think everybody would say, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." A different story every week with some kind of thread connecting all of them, but horribly they're not successful at all, and I wonder why that is. Maybe we'll uncover that truth somewhere in.
I think
Mike's further exploration of Quantum Leap.
I will say this, so studios used to have these giant backlots where they had all of these sets. And so when you were shooting an anthology, you could be like, well, 1 week's a Western, 1 week's actually a really good example is Back to the Future was shot on like a very specific set that's been used for like everything from cities to like small towns to Westerns to science fiction movies. And they just use that set all the time. But studios used to have like hundreds of those. And so you could just, and now you don't really have access to that. Like you have to build whatever either on a soundstage or you have to get permits and shoot in public.
So you don't even get the advantage of some of the cost saving stuff is not even there anymore.
Yeah.
That's why in the porn world, I got into gonzo filmmaking.
With the Muppets?
Gonzo is it's handheld. Normally the actor it's two actors that are performing an act together. One of the actors is holding a camera. Occasionally maybe that actor will pull the camera away and point it on themselves and say the numerous acts that they're going to perform. And as one actor is performing these acts on the other actor, they are filming those acts themselves, which and if a gonzo performer knows how to hold a camera correctly, you can get some very interesting angles.
Okay. Like what?
Well, there's one called the Dutch Inside Out, and there's actually an angle called the P Bellisario. But P is spelled P-E-E. Water sports, they call it. That's in the water sports.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. So they got the idea was that it'll be this anthology show. Every episode will have the scientist character leaping into a different body, and there'll be a set up for a different sort of adventure each episode. And it is kind of the perfect setup for a anthology show that still maintains the same characters every single time, because you can put that character in comedic situations and serious situations. You can put them in historically, like there's an episode, a two-parter that deals with the Kennedy assassination. And interestingly enough, Donald P Bellisario, who a lot of his shows, Airwolf included JAG, there's a lot of military characters in it. That's because Bellisario was in the Marines. Who did he serve? Who did he serve with briefly in the Marines? None other than Lee Harvey Oswald.
Whoa!
Oh,
yeah. So that was kind of a little tie-in for that episode.
That's why people tune in every week.
Every week, so you can have all types of episodes. The conceit being that we see the character that Scott Bakula jumps into, the audience sees as Scott Bakula walking around the whole time. But when he looks into a mirror, we see a brief vision of what he sees, and it's whatever character. So it could be like an old lady. It could be, it could be a young kid. It could be an old guy. It could be people of different races, different creeds, different colors, all sorts of stuff. Making Scott Bakula have to kind of understand what it's like to be all these sorts of different people from a while. For the rest of the cast, the main other guy that's in every episode is Dean Stockwell. He plays Al, who is Dean Stockwell is a guy he's been in film forever. He was in tons of movies. When he was a little kid, he was a child star in a movie called The Boy with the Green Hair.
Yes,
that was about. It was kind of crazy. It was this movie about a huge phenomenon at the time, baby boomer phenomenon, which is war orphans. I guess maybe not baby boomer, because this is more, I guess, pre-baby boomer.
Yeah, like late silent generation.
People that went off to war, whose dads got killed and whose moms left them or whatever. And so there's a huge problem of war orphans back in the day. And this was a movie dealing with that problem. But Dean Stockwell was in a ton of movies, mostly kind of not extra work, but, guys without lines, never a lead or even a co-lead, and did a lot of TV. And then he got picked up by David Lynch, and he was in Blue Velvet. He played like a villain in Blue Velvet, and that kind of really blew up his career. And then he was in Married to the Mob the next year and got an Oscar nomination for that. And so then he got plucked for TV, and he was like, you had this real big career kind of popping off in films, this Oscar nomination. How come you wanted to do a TV show? And his quote was just the moment he read the script, he thought it was going to be a success, and that his idea was to try and get a TV show that he would get stranded in for 5 or 6 years, because I've done 60 films. I don't have anything to prove anymore, and I don't care to prove anything in the theater. I just want to make some money.
Nice.
So they did that, and the show is a pretty big success, to the point that I remember in the 8th grade, a kid raising his hand and saying, "Mr. Ormsby, could there be a real life quantum leap?" And
sure, that took up the rest of the day.
Yeah, that really started a real class discussion.
Were you that kid?
No, I was not that kid. That kid was a dumb redneck. I was a smart redneck. But so Al, the Dean Stockwell character, is like back in our time, and he's able to holographically go into whatever time that Scott Bakula's in, only he's a hologram. Nobody else can see him except Scott Bakula, and he'll come in and give him advice about, what the situation is, kind of what his mission is, like, this thing happened and we need you to fix it. And he's always talking to a really silly looking computer called, I believe the computer's called Ziggy.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's right.
And he plays on that. And then there's another guy who they only show a couple episodes back at the base named Iggy, I think. And Iggy is played by the deceased Dennis Wolfberg.
Yes.
Who was a stand-up comedian who was
really great.
Really great, fun stand-up comedian that had crazy eyeballs that would make a lot of... who died really young. Anyway, this show was very successful. It was on from 89 to 93.
Oh yeah.
Which is, like, it's really like 88 or 89 to 93, which is like the sum total of like, that's like all that's like most of my junior high years and all of my high school years.
Yeah.
That show was always just kind of on. I think I probably got a little bit tired of it at some point, because it is just kind of the same episodic thing every time.
Right.
I always kind of wanted it to actually deal with the problem of how much it would suck to you're constantly leaping. And the end of every episode has, unless it's a 2-parter, has him leaping into a brand new time, and he'll always has to discover who he is and what's going on. So he leaps into a new time, and it's always usually like an unfortunate situation, like him naked in front of a bunch of people, and he just says, "Oh boy."
Then cuts commercial.
And then then it cuts to the end of the episode, and then the next episode starts with that. I watched it quite a bit. Did you guys watch it at all when it was back in the day when it was on?
I want to say like 88 to like maybe 90 or 91. Right. I was into it, and then I kind of stepped away.
That was one of those shows, I think, that's syndicated early.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that phenomenon was, where they were probably playing the first season in syndication before. And I don't know if that's possible, but it seemed like you could see on other channels faster than you would expect to for that era of television. So I think I've seen a lot of it.
It was that era of television where seasons were like, it wasn't now. I think like a lot of episodes are like you get like 12 to 15 episodes in a season. Back then it was like 48 or something ridiculous.
Right. It was usually 22 to 26, but sometimes they would do more. Yeah.
But I enjoyed it enough until it started to feel a little repetitive or whatever. But, in 5 seasons and however many episodes there's no like sequential storyline. It's episodic every time. You get some real weird episodes. And I would like to tell you guys about a couple of those. First of all, they did give it like a weird ending where it ends with on the final episode where Scott Bakula is just kind of stuck leaping. It ends with them saying that he keeps leaping, hoping for the next one to finally be his trip home. But and that really like bummed people out. And then several years later, they did a made for TV movie where they tied it up and he finally made it home. And I think like his kid or one of his kids or something like that. But some of the episodes had some of them were really silly, and some of them would have these real weird like tinges of kind of sad stuff that would happen. Like where there's one where Sam leaps into Al's body in the past, and Al's supposed to like save his platoon, but Al in real life is trying to get him to like go AWOL and go home to see his wife that died that he never got over and stuff like that. And there's some really like cultural kind of episodes, stuff that dealt with race, with civil rights stuff, of him going into different people in the deep South in the 60s that are dealing with a lot of like race stuff and kind of exploring that, which sometimes that's fine, but sometimes it's a little jarring when it's this goofy science fiction show and there's holograms of people wearing crazy loud ties that are walking around going like, you gotta fight these, you gotta be careful from these Ku Klux Klan guys, white person. But here's some fun episodes. Okay. There's Good Morning Peoria, where Sam Beckett leaps into a young upstart named Chubby Checker, who's just trying to get a little, or he doesn't leap into it, but he meets Chubby Checker. Right. Trying to get a little ditty called The Twist, get some airplay. And Sam teaches Chubby Checker how to do the twist and shows him a little dance that he can do that in the bathroom. There's another episode where Sam shows a very young Michael Jackson how to moonwalk in a public restroom. No. So it's a little bit of like, the thing is too, like this is pre-Forrest Gump, right? So I think there's a little pieces of this that they kind of, which ultimately is going, I think, back to just the simple line of Back to the Future of, hey, Chuck, it's your cousin Marvin Berry. You got to hear this song. So there's a little bit of that.
It's kind of uncomfortable with a modern historical lens, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. There's some uncomfortable stuff here. There's some stuff that gets a little like supernatural stuff that kind of makes you question some of the other stuff. There's one where there's another time traveling guy who might be the devil. Oh. There's some stuff with ghosts and stuff like that. There's one where Sam actually leaps into a young pre-fame Elvis Presley. He has extra pressure to not fuck up musical history, and he manages not to. But the funny thing is, they do put a saxophone solo into The Blue Moon of Kentucky, which wasn't in the real version of it. So who knows what that is? There's one episode where Sam becomes 1980s sex therapist and pop culture icon Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Oh my goodness!
Nice.
And I'm really kind of dying to see that episode. The thing that they don't really show you ever on any of these episodes, except on this one, I think they mention it that when Sam leaps into the body of, in this case, Dr. Ruth, but anybody's body, that person's consciousness is zapped into the now time, into Sam's body. And it's because Sam's body is just stuck in this kind of cryogenic looking chamber in our time. And in that episode, Dr. Ruth inside Sam's body helps Al out with some sex advice. Good stuff.
Okay. I mean, I guess you can't have Dr. Ruth and not have her do that. That was
right.
Yeah.
That was tied to her being famous. It had to happen. It's like Mr. T pitying the fool.
She's still alive, by the way.
Yeah, she's still alive. Still fucking.
Yeah.
She just wrote a book called Still Fucking.
Still fucking.
Yeah. There's a chapter that says Still Boofooing ? And if you read the chapter, yes. Yes, indeed. Now, Sam can only jump into the years that he was born. I don't know how old he was. He was probably like mid 40s in 1989. So however old that is. So he can't like go back to like, World War I, but he does go back to Vietnam. There's one where he goes back to 1957 in Egypt to discover the tomb of Pharaoh. And there's a lot of crazy, complicated. It does a lot of the same kind of, Bellisario leans into the same Glenn Larson stuff where like, oh, is there a movie that we can kind of rip off in a really half-ass way? Well, let's do it. And they do that a lot. There's a bunch of like, there's a vampire episode that questions whether vampires are real. There's one where Sam is the chauffeur for Marilyn Monroe, and he has to save her from her death. But it only buys on 2 more years of her life, and when she, ultimately dies by a handful of pills. And you think Sam would have like forewarned her about that, about maybe getting clean and maybe staying off all the drugs.
Right.
There's an episode where he's like he joins Kiss, but it's like a kind of a fake Kiss. There's an episode where he's pregnant. And he goes into a girl who's pregnant, and it kind of like messes with his head. There's one where he goes into a chimp. He goes into a chimpanzee. And he wears diapers the entire episode because he's and that episode is very clearly sort of Project X based.
Okay.
Let's deal with the test chimp.
Matthew
Broderick,
and directed by John Badham.
He was a bad man. There's the evil episode where there's another time traveler who's like an evil guy.
Oh, and, I remember that. Yeah.
It's like, and it's set up. It's during Halloween, and it takes place in Maine. And at one point, there's a kid named Stevie that he talks to a whole bunch. Stevie's last name King. Bum bum bum. But by far, like the two craziest episodes were, there's an episode that weirdly got a lot of flack that probably would have been, I think, pretty well received today, where he goes into the body of a guy in the Navy there's another naval character who's gay, and in the story, the thing he has to correct is all these other Navy guys find out that he's gay and kill him. Oh. And they gay bash him to death. And in the story, he has to like help him out. And weirdly, like this episode, there was a bunch of like, this is 89. And apparently there were like a bunch of sponsors pulled out because they found out this was about, and to keep in mind, this show is very sanitary. This is a really like clean show. And they had to kind of like change all the wording of the, like in the TV guide and stuff, there's like the 3-sentence log line about what the show's about. They had to completely change it so they didn't mention any homosexuality stuff in there. There was like, there's a problem at the naval base and Sam has to help fix it or whatever. But for some reason, it got like a whole lot of flack from the LGBTQ community, when I think that since then, a lot of them have come back about it. But it was, the episode was called Running for Honor, and it was set in 1964. They lost about $500,000 from sponsors pulling out. And, they had to change the title to Sam's life hangs in the balance when he's accused of betraying his country. And one of the writers on the show was an openly gay guy, and he was like, I'm upset that the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation would go against this because the script does not slur gays in any way. I have the opportunity of getting a primetime television story on gay bashing and an outing. My own group of people is slamming my script down. So I think it was kind of one of those things where they just found out that nobody had probably seen the episode, and they started to go down it.
Yeah.
But by far, and I had to kind of go back and find this episode because I remembered it. When I kind of was looking up like weird episodes of Quantum Leap, I remember this episode, and this episode doesn't pop up so much. So this is Sam Beckett leaping into this character, and this is first he leaps in and he says, "Oh boy," and then Al, and you won't see this, like this is off screen. Al, he goes, "Oh boy," and Al goes, "Oh boy, what do you mean, oh boy? Why are you oh boying?" And this is what happens.
I'm retarded?
Oh no. Scott Bakula.
He must have seen Mickey Rooney's bill and was inspired.
Yeah, the most controversial episode, and it's weird that it comes up again, is when Sam Beckett leaps into a kid with Down syndrome. And the kid he's got an older brother that works at the docks, and he gets a job working at the docks, and he gets bullied. When he gets the job at the docks, he's bullied, and really viciously bullied. And they use the R word a lot in this episode, like a whole lot. They use it medically in a term, and they use it in a way where in a medical term way, in the way that we don't use that term medically anymore.
Right.
It was used as late as 1991 or whatever. They were using that term. But and if you'll notice, he has a Thor poster on his wall back there,
and a Prince Valiant haircut.
Mm-hmm. And he gets bullied at his job by Mr. Blonde himself, Michael Madsen,
really
playing a character named Blue. But Michael Madsen is a real jerk and really picks on a much younger than him. But the episode, the crazy thing about it is there was no waves at all made by this episode, as far as pushback, when clearly it would be very frowned upon to do now. But the character's name is Jimmy. Jimmy comes back for 2 more episodes. There's an episode where Scott Bakula ends up in playing a different character. He leaps into a different body, and he's in a mental institution, and they are giving him electroshock treatment. He keeps these different personalities of different people pop up.
Well, it's interesting, Mike, because I think that you can point at things historically, and I mean, obviously that's not a word that we use anymore, and I think we're all comfortable with that being a word we don't use anymore. But it's also
I'm not comfortable with that at all.
And we I think Kevin a little bit, but there is
a little bit what
you like to use it.
Yeah, you use the word.
You use it when it's convenient.
Right.
I don't agree with that, but go ahead.
When you're driving, typically.
I'm a free speech warrior. I mean, everybody knows that. Like the only reason I do anything is for free speech, is to champion free speech. That's the only thing I really care.
You, Lenny Bruce, and Larry Flint,
and Larry the Cable Guy.
And Larry the Cable Guy.
Free speech is my passion. Free speech is the only thing I think about at all. And part of having free speech means that you have to say even words that are now deemed not appropriate because we've moved on. We have better words to say now.
Right.
That doesn't matter.
Right.
That doesn't matter.
Wow.
It's not about having empathy for people's feelings in a world that has evolved. It's about being able to say every single word that you can possibly say anytime you want it and have no repercussions.
Right.
And people also have to think it's funny.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, that's the most important part.
And they have to like me more because of it.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise you're the victim.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to boohoo and cry, but has my life been affected by this? I don't even know what to call it. This culture that won't allow things. That's like no more.
They want to hear from you.
I'm going to call it no more culture. This is no more culture.
Right. Well, that's what we're going to get. No more culture.
Well, 100%. 100%. We're going to live, because if it's not, these words that are the most important thing, then honestly, I don't want to live in a world where I can't freely say these words at any given time and be applauded for it. Otherwise, I do think that I am going to end my life by my own hands.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, when I don't use the word brave often, but for millionaires to be like, I'm going to use the word anyway.
Yeah.
That's brave.
Well, guys, really, if you think about it, anytime that we select the language we use, anytime we self-monitor, anytime we consider what we're going to say, we're really just self-censoring ourselves. And when you do that, you become part of the problem. And that's why for at least 4 hours a day, I like to just scream sounds. That's the only way I can show the world that I'm not falling prey to their nanny state, censoring fascist ideals. This is America.
Right.
And in America, we're free and we can say whatever the hell we want to say.
I'm confused by what you're saying, and I might need an example.
Well, I'm not going to. I mean, I unfortunately, my child is asleep, and I'm allowing myself to be censored. See, this is it. This is the problem. This is how it starts.
I can't believe
this is how it
let
starts.
Yourself under the tyranny of child.
Exactly.
I think you should go scream in your child's bedroom, all of these words.
Right.
Because listen, I don't want to live in a nanny state. And you know why? Because I don't care for Fran Drescher's voice. It's grating. It's husky and grating.
Well, yeah.
Like an annoying Kathleen Turner.
Yes, I would make love to her vigorously.
To Fran Drescher or Kathleen
Yes.
Turner?
Both.
Okay.
At the same time,
Okay.
even possibly.
We can, get some people on the phone.
Well, I would have phone sex with them too.
I'm again not at all justifying anything, but that is, of all the words that we're careful of, that's the weirdest one to me, only because we grew up in an era where there were commercials for the Ark, which was
Well, I mean, I worked at a place that had that in the title.
right. It was the Association of Retarded Citizens, so it's just
Well, no,
it's a word that fell in
No, I worked
disfavor very quickly.
I worked at Denton MHMR, mental health, mental retardation.
Right.
Well, I mean, my mother was like, that was part of her like credential, like that she would sign after her name was QMRP, qualified mental retardation professional.
Did she laugh every time she signed her?
Yeah.
There was no allowance of using that word in a derogatory way in our house ever.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
It is a weird thing. So I worked at a group home with mentally disabled people, and this was in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and to say that word wasn't everywhere, and it was like the weird thing, that word was everywhere, like forums and stuff. But there was one client that we had that Mark Ryan actually knows. Mark worked with them a lot too. I really liked a lot. He was an older guy, older gentleman. And when you look at his charts from when he was a kid, it like medically diagnosed him as being a moron or moronic.
Ooh.
And medically diagnosed him as being an idiot, and that's not like, but there's no, when whoever wrote that was a doctor, and there was no slur, there's no weight to the slur about
the
that.
connotation was not there yet. It was just the word you used for that.
Yeah. Or maybe it was. I think like with the word in question and that word back then, I guess there was like a weird duality of that word being a slur and a medical diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I definitely remember where like people would have family members that had that diagnosis, but we're still sensitive to the word. And there was like a time I think in the 90s where it was just like, it's hard we need a new term just because we can't talk about the disability that we are dealing with.
Yeah. It's not about the free speech, which I am a hardened warrior for. It's not just that I'm a warrior, like I'm a battle scarred veteran.
Right. Oh yeah.
I'm like an old king covered in scars and with a giant beard. Glorious tales have been told about my fighting in the field, my fighting prowess, and all the enemies I've felled, enemies that were against free speech.
Like a high level barbarian.
Give us an example. One of your big enemies.
Terrestrial radio, network TV.
Wow.
My mom.
Well, okay, yeah, I understand that.
Really showed her.
My mom, my dad. My sixth grade teacher, Miss Hurley. And and I took some lumps. I have scars. Right. I have bruises. I've got wounds that won't heal from fighting in the free speech wars. And I hate to say it today, but it looks like these wars are coming back. And I hate to say that today. Mm. And if the world needs another champion, well, then I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kick the ever-loving S out of it.
You'll never be appreciated in your own time, Michael, but history will look on you fondly.
Listen up here, you M fuckers.
Wow.
Slow down, Mike.
S my D, K my A, L my B.
Yeah.
Got that one.
FUNTA.
Oh, NIN, not okay.
And T stands for the. I'll just let you know that.
Okay. So you use the word in, but then made it just use T for the.
Hey,
Right.
That's part about keeping speech free.
Yeah. Don't tell them how to
Whoa.
do it. Mike.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Part of keeping
Okay.
speech free is that I don't need to have to spell anything correctly either.
I mean, I think that you need
don't
to be able to.
don't trample over my free speech by telling me how to spell everything. I before E. Yeah, if I fucking want it to be. Y is never a vowel in my speech. Never.
Bold. Wait, the letter Y or the word Y?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Right.
You sick son of a bitch.
And Mike spelling it's the same thing.
So that wraps up another week of the International News Service. Find us across social media at International News Pod. Email us at internationalnewspod@gmail.com. And join us next week for our special 100th episode where we have something big planned. Probably, right, guys?
I got some big shit planned.
Thought we were stopping at 99.
Check out the INS merch store at Redbubble and our Patreon. We'll see you next week. 100.
Thank you for listening to the International News Service. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. INS, the news you need.